End of the story, end of discussion. By the way, we have our first GIMP of the session. Senator Joe Manchin has basically already suggested we should negotiate with the Republicans. In an interview on Fox Business conducted by the annual gathering of corporate and political leaders in Davos, Switzerland, sweet Lord, the West Virginia Democrat said, we have a real debt problem and argued, well, then let's undo the Trump era, quote unquote, tax cuts that created the problem, and problem solved. Isn't that the craziest part of all? Okay, well, you remember what created all this deficit? That was the Trump era tax cuts. Let's undo them and problem solved. All right, done. And let's go get some lunch. All right, we're done. The senator singled out Social Security, even though the program can't by law add to long-term deficits. While Manchin voiced opposition to GOP calls to privatize Social Security, saying such proposals scare the bejesus out of people, he said Congress should be able to solidify it so the people who have worked and earned it are going to know they're going to get it. Okay, Joe, can you listen to me for a second, Senator? Are you a moron? Seriously, how much coal dust have you inhaled, you idiot? It's not going to be there for them if you go along with the Republicans and kill it. So you entertaining negotiating with the terrorists, Hans Gruber, is not going to work. You idiot. God, how stupid is Joe Manchin? Well, no, he's not stupid. He's just bought and paid for. Like cinema. Because the wealthy people have learned this. All they need to do is just have a few Democrats in the fold. They don't have to sponsor all the Democrats. They're not going to give Amy Klobuchar. Well, they probably give Amy Klobuchar some money, but they probably give Tina Smith some money. But they're not going to basically give them such obscene amounts where they demand the allegiance like they have given to Sinema and Manchin and the Republicans. That's what they've done is they've just realized, oh, well, we just basically have to buy off one or two of these guys, and there you go. The problem from the perspective of Social Security defenders is Manchin suggesting avenue for reforms, bipartisan congressional committees that critics have denounced as a Trojan horse to cut seniors' benefits. Hell no to even a single penny of cuts to Social Security's earned benefits. The progressive group Social Security Works tweeted Wednesday in response to Manchin's comment, hell no to fast-track commissions designed to cut benefits behind closed doors. Because that's the thing is, these guys do not want this out in the public. They do not want this out in the public. We're going to cut all this stuff. Shh, don't say anything. And like I said, and here's the great part about Republicans. We're going to cut Medicare, Medicaid. We're going to fix this. We're going to do this. They're bragging about it. They're going to get back home. And the second they get out of their car, I can't believe the Democrats did this. And their voters will believe them because their voters are freaking brainwashed. It's why you go up in with Stubby, Pete Stauber up in the Minnesota 8. Stubby up there is out there taking credit for airport infrastructure improvements that he voted against because he knows that his voters don't care that he voted against them. They just want the narrative saying, see, Stubby delivered. And so now he's going to go out there and he's going to kill their Social Security and Medicare. And they're going to come on back and they're like, wow, I don't have Social Security and Medicare. And Stubby's going to go out there and say, you know who did that was the Democrats. They're going to be like, hey, yeah. Under legislation that Manchin has introduced alongside with Mitt Romney, Congress would establish a bipartisan rescue committees for the nation's trust fund programs. Okay. Once again, you don't need rescue programs. Just undo the Trump era tax cuts and the budget deficit issue is solved. Seriously, just undo the Trump era tax cuts and the budget deficit issue is going to be resolved. And yeah, that might mean we have to claw back money that we gave, but the reality is we now know we should not have given that money to these corporations and the wealthy people. Well, you made a mistake and, we can't go back there and fix it. We have to take away everyone's health care. It is disturbing. By the way, once again, thank God Joe Biden is in the White House, because I do not think Joe Biden is going to go along with any cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security. and he shouldn't. And by the way, Democrats, when this is all over, your ad campaign is Republicans wanted to kill Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and we stopped them. Ta-da! And that's it. That's all you have to write. That's all you have to write. You don't have to write anything else. Republicans tried to kill Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, and we stopped them. Vote Democrat. Vote DFL. Manchin told host Maria Bartiromo that he has spoken briefly with House Speaker McCarthy on the Trust Act. Asked about the White House stand against attaching any conditions to the debt ceiling, Manchin said he really thinks the administration will reverse course and negotiate with Republicans. Ha! Manchin, you are a moron. God. Well, West Virginia. But still, oh, boo-hoo, dear Lord. Take a look at the quality of schools, quality of life, all the fact that you're 49 or 50 on every freaking rating list in the country, and you idiots keep electing people like this. Every election, there's a guy out there saying, you know what, I'm going to save Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. I'm going to try to get your health care bills lowered. And you go, we're not voting for you. You're a liberal. And then all of a sudden, this is what you get. And you wonder why that state stays dirt freaking poor. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Can't get out of their own way. It does all it is. We got to stop this now. Let's take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the DataBank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the DataBank to create progressive change. Today, the DataBank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the DataBank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The DataBank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
This is Gregory Rich, host of Drink in the Style and owner of Habitation Furnishing and Design. People often ask me, why habitation for my home? Well, I could give you hundreds of reasons. I could talk about the extensive collection of furnishing suppliers or our exceptionally talented design team. I could talk about service, but the truth is, habitation clients come back room after room and home after home, and that speaks volumes. Habitation, put some drama into your interiors.
Located just north of 50th and France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, they offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067 or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
I'm alright. Nobody but about me.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. This is basically just Republicans saying, we favor the wealthy. Wealthy people get all the money. You guys get nothing. And we are at that point. But God, it is disturbing how many people will have the Republicans literally kick open their door, yank every possession and every dollar out of their hand, and they'll say, thank God I voted Republican. It would have been so much worse with the Democrats. How? I don't know. I'm just going to say it. The gas stove. Jesus, that's what it'd be like. Oh, of course, these are the same people who voted for Donald Trump. And now Trump on Wednesday claimed that he took only folders for classified documents as a cool keepsake, and accused Trump-hating feds of planting top-secret documents to frame him. Trump sought to downplay the scandal surrounding the taking of hundreds of classified documents by just he's looking for some souvenirs. You know, it was like I was there. I went over to the MIA, and of course they had that fantastic that Picasso sculpture, that baboon car. I wanted a great souvenir. I just took that home with me because souvenirs, it's cool. It's a keepsake. Hey, remember when I went to the museum and robbed them? I mean, took home a keepsake.
Well, remember, you just thought they were yours. As long as the thought is in your head, they're yours.
Yeah, I, that priceless Sargent painting. I thought it was mine. I have one just like it. So, keepsake. These were ordinary, inexpensive folders with various words printed on them. They were a cool keepsake. Words such as classified and do not take, I'm presuming, were on there. Trump wrote in a post on social media site, perhaps the Gestapo took some of the empty folders when they raided Mar-a-Lago and counted them as a document, which they are not. No, they found tons of documents, you traitorous bastard. You orange bloviated traitorous bastard. No, they found you basically took a bunch of documents to try to probably sell to the highest bidder so that you could try to keep yourself relevant in the world stage, you absolute jackass. I'm guessing. Paraphrasing. Hypothesizing. Hypothetical. Yeah, there it is. Without offering any evidence, Trump said Trump-hating Marxist thugs will be planting more documents while the folders are in the hands of federal prosecutors. Oh! He also tried to change the subject of the discovery of classified documents to Joe Biden's home and office, a scandal that has jolted the White House in recent days. They keep saying I had a large number of documents in order to make Biden classified docs look less significant. No, you actually did. And then you claimed that you could keep them. And then you claimed that you declassified them, which you couldn't do. Then you claimed that you didn't have any. And then they basically said, well, we know you have some more. And you kept saying, no, I don't have any more. And then they said you did. And then we found them by the pool boy at Mar-a-Lago in the pool room, an unsecured room. Hell, they were all over the place at Mar-a-Lago and unlocked down all over the place. Hey, Biden's got his issues, but don't try to make the argument that you didn't do something 1,000 times worse, you traitorous bastard. As president, I did nothing wrong. Joe did. Okay. And by the way, can we make sure we understand something? He's admitting to stealing classified documents. And he admits he did it, and that I didn't do anything wrong. To the contrary, Trump fought tooth and nail to hold on to a trove of thousands of government documents and presidential records that were improperly taken when he left the White House. Federal investigators say Trump also defied a subpoena to return all the classified documents, prompting a search that turned up more than 300 classified documents at his oceanfront resort, the traitorous bastard. In Biden's case, his lawyers immediately informed the feds when they found the small number of classified documents stored in the office of the president, once used last November. They later launched a more extensive search, which came up with 2 more sets of documents at the Biden home in Delaware. Special counsel Jack Smith is mulling whether to file charges against Trump. Oh, they're going to file charges because he's just a horrible human being. I would love to see that come any day now. Jack Rice, when we do return, it's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. And don't forget your air ducts to help alleviate allergies and asthma. And it's also important to enjoy less dust, lower energy bills, and your home staying cleaner longer. Zero Res is here to protect your biggest investment, your home. Why pay someone to clean your carpet if they are going to leave something behind that makes it dirty again super fast? Zero Res is the longest lasting and best clean. Schedule your appointment at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES, and don't forget to ask for the AM 950 special. This month, book and clean in January only and get 23% off all services for 2023. That's 952-ZERO-RES or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Hello, it's Randy Rhodes. Team Randy, glad to be a part of the lineup of Progressive Voices on AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Stocks finished lower on Wall Street today. Worries are building that the U.S. may be headed for a painful recession. The Dow finished down 252 points. Federal Reserve Vice Chair Lael Brainerd says inflation is easing.
We have undertaken very forceful action. We've tightened a lot. And we are starting to see the effects of that on inflation.
But she says inflation is still high and the Fed would have to keep interest rates elevated for some time. The Treasury Department has started to take what it calls extraordinary accounting steps to avoid default. The government has run up against its legal borrowing capacity of more than $31 trillion. The AP's Josh Boak reports on what could happen if a deal isn't reached to raise the debt ceiling.
The U.S. Treasury note is the most important asset in financial global markets. If investors lose confidence in the United States' ability to pay its debts, then interest rates will go up. It'll be more expensive to buy cars and houses. Moody's Analytics in 2021, when we last faced this challenge, estimated there could be more than 6 million job losses.
The White House and Congress have several months to reach an agreement. The Treasury Department has imposed measures to keep the government operating until at least June. Alec Baldwin and a weapons specialist will be charged with involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting in 2021 of a cinematographer on a New Mexico movie set. A jury has convicted a Navy reservist from Virginia, Hatchet Speed, accused of storming the Capitol January 6th on separate charges. He illegally possessed silencers disguised to look like innocuous cleaning supplies. A man in Indiana whose neighbors saw his 4-year-old child point a loaded handgun at them outside their apartment appeared in court. A judge entered not guilty pleas to 3 felony charges. A federal judge ordered Boeing to be arraigned on a felony charge stemming from crashes of 2 737 MAX jets. This is AP News.
Dear online threats, after all the time we spent together, I'm finally ready to say goodbye. I have to admit, I was careless. At first, I thought maybe you weren't so bad. Then I believed I was too weak to fight you. I was wrong. I can do better. You know what? NordVPN is by my side now. I feel safer already.
Everyone can boost their digital confidence with NordVPN. All it takes is one simple click. NordVPN will block online trackers, hide your virtual location, and secure your devices from malware-infected downloads. It will also block access to malicious websites. So catch the special deal now at NordVPN.com. Enjoy more private and secure internet daily. NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. And don't forget your air ducts to help alleviate allergies and asthma. And it's also important to enjoy less dust, lower energy bills, and your home staying cleaner longer. Zero Res is here to protect your biggest investment, your home. Why pay someone to clean your carpet if they are going to leave something behind that makes it dirty again super fast? Zero Res is the longest lasting and best clean. Schedule your appointment at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES, and don't forget to ask for the AM 950 special. This month, book and clean in January only and get 23% off all services for 2023. That's 952-ZERO-RES or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Hi, this is Paul Metza. Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour for the last 5 years on AM 950. We air every Saturday night at 6 p.m. We have artists, musicians, private detectives, politicians, and more. On AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for snow to taper today with a high near 30, tonight cloudy with a low around 18, and Friday cloudy with a high near 24. The Great Wall Restaurant offers an extensive Chinese menu with an emphasis on Szechuan and Mandarin cuisine. Some of their specialties include the double sautéed lamb, seafood delight, and crispy boneless duck. The Great Wall Restaurant is located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border. More at GreatWallEdina.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
hour number 2 of the show on your Thursday. Good to be with you. Matt McNeil, the Matt McNeil Show, Matt, Brett, and of course, one of my favorite guests to have on. Jack Rice is the best defense attorney in the entire state of Minnesota. Jack Rice Defense, that is where you'll find him. And of course, he's kind enough today to join us to talk about legal issues in the city of Minneapolis, St. Paul, as well as around the state. Jack, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
It's great to be with you, man. It's been some time, hasn't it?
It has. Can I just say this? I'm gonna do this on the side note here. One of the first people that got in touch with me after this car accident was Jack. Very quickly said, "What do you need? Let me know." Then later on, when it became clear that my wife and I think we were looking for legal help, I asked him, and very quickly you gave some great advice and some advice that was very appreciated. I can't thank you enough. You've been a very good friend through this, and I'm very grateful for what you've done, my friend.
Oh my God, when I heard about it, it's one of those things where it kind of doesn't make sense when you first hear about it. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. And it's the nature of the world where sometimes things happen and there's just no logic to why it happens. It just does. And then you have to figure out how to handle it. And I'm just thankful that if I had anything to offer, that it was useful to you.
It was very useful, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for the support. I really do appreciate that. All right. So yesterday, oh God, and can I just tell you how depressing it was to go back to this story? Derek Chauvin's attorney asked the Minnesota Court of Appeals on Wednesday to throw out the former Minneapolis police officer's convictions for the murder of George Floyd. A lot of this basically seems to center around the idea that there was no way on the planet he was ever going to get a fair trial in Minneapolis or Hennepin County. First of all, your thoughts when you saw this?
Well, I'm not surprised that this went to the Court of Appeals. I mean, it's not particularly shocking in the sense that, he ended up being convicted, sentenced to 22 and a half years. But let's be real clear, really big picture for a second, Matt. There were actually 2 trials that were going on, although it feels like about 50 for most of us at this point on the Derek Chauvin case. It wasn't just his state case. It was all of his co-defendants. So we had all those that stretched out. But then we also had the federal case. And then all of the co-defendants in those that stretched out. And remember, Derek Chauvin pled guilty to federal court, to civil rights charges. And he was sentenced to 21 years. And let's be clear about this. He is going to serve more time in federal custody than he will in state custody. So the logic, the real reality of it is this. Even if this case were dismissed outright, the state case, he would still serve more time in federal custody than he would from the state case. So let's make that point. Mm-hmm. And that's just a fact. But the idea that what he ultimately is doing here is he's fighting the state case for a whole series of reasons. And you're right. The real argument was he was never going to get a fair trial. Here's the problem. The problem is this jury, I think, did the best that they could under these circumstances. I think this judge did the best that he could under these circumstances. And the real problem is that they knew about this case in Singapore and in Turkmenistan and in Buenos Aires and in San Diego and in Minneapolis. That's the problem. Where else are you going to go?
That was something that there are 2 things that you were very clear about in all the great coverage we had with you and when you came on to give your analysis. 2 things. One, there really didn't seem to be anything in the trial. When you're looking at an appeal, you're looking at something that went wrong, and there just didn't seem to be that you're going to meet that standard on an appeal. The other thing that you said is, if you were moving it out of Minneapolis, where exactly were you going to move it to? Because there wasn't exactly, maybe St. Paul, but really outside of that, there wasn't really a courthouse across the state that was going to handle the publicity, the crowds, the journalists that were going to descend on some town. The idea of putting it out in, say, like Lincoln or Jefferson County was just not an option when it came to the size and the scope of this trial.
Well, in fact, what Peter Cahill, who was the judge in this case, and I've been in front of Judge Cahill many, many times before and afterward, and most recently within the last week or 2. And what he said was exactly that. I mean, the problem that you face is every every county in the state knows about what was going on with Derek Chauvin. Everybody in the world seemed to know about that issue. But the problem was nobody else was prepared to handle it. And one of the big reasons was a security standpoint. They simply did not have the resources. They did not have the facilities to be able to handle a case like this. So in fact, from a safety standpoint, that there was no way that this was going to happen. In St. Paul, I mean, if you're making the argument that Minneapolis was burned, so was St. Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing happened on University. Yes, it wasn't to the extent that we saw in other parts of Minneapolis, and yet the same thing was happening. I can tell you, I live right on the river on the St. Paul side, and there was a convoy of armored personnel carriers rolling up Highland Parkway. So, I mean, that was going on here as well as it was happening in Minneapolis. But you know what? I mean, if we're really going to go into it and dig a little bit, there were a couple of things that happened that gave me some heartburn. You remember that one juror who claimed that he wasn't at any of the protests?
Well, I think
never
that
done anything.
I think the question was, had you ever been to Washington, D.C.? He'd answer no. And then it came to light that not only he had been to Washington, D.C., but he would actually been there on a protest for, civil rights, wearing a shirt that basically said, "Get off my neck," if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, see, that one gave me some heartburn for a lot of reasons. And one of those reasons is because what we always want, and this is the hard part, is that did he do it? Yes. Was he convicted of it? Yes, he was. At the same time, what I always want to see, even for those who are, dare I say it, guilty, but they must be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What I really want is I want the cleanest, fairest trial possible. Because if they are found guilty, I want the state to be able to prove it. So that one gave me a little bit of a problem. The other one, which had nothing really to do with the trial itself, for me, was the, dare I say this, the idiocy, the idiocy of the city council when they negotiated this $27 million settlement with the family, rolled it out while they were picking the jury. And the jury was not sequestered. Actually, that was one of the arguments that this defense attorney made on the appeal, was that they should have been sequestered. But the idiocy, in my opinion, of the city council for making that decision and then making it publicly, they did not need to, but they made it publicly while they were picking a jury. And in fact, they had to bump at least one of those jurors, it might have been two, who were picked already because they had heard about this. And what does it say when the city council says, we're going to drop $27 million, a record payout to somebody, the most that's ever been paid out in Minnesota history? It made Derek Chauvin look that much more guilty. That one kind of bugged me too. But let's set that aside. In the end, I think what you got here was a jury that worked really hard, listened to every piece of evidence, looked and tried to make a fair determination. In the end, the fact is that a court of appeals, whether it's the Minnesota Court of Appeals or Minnesota Supreme Court, none of them like to overturn the will of a jury. And that jury of 12 came back and said, guilty. For them to overturn it, they almost have to be backed into a corner and forced to do it, because otherwise they simply won't overturn a criminal conviction. It's very difficult.
Well, and we have to remind people, and I reminded people of this yesterday, you were on the air with me the day before the announcement of the verdict. And we both sat there and said, will all these charges come through? Will he be found guilty? Because you had brought these issues up and said, I could see him not being found guilty on this issue here. It ended up being guilty on all counts. But the reality is this notion that's put out by his lawyer, and I know his job is to try to fight for him, and that's fine. But the reality is this argument that this was a done deal. I think you and I were very clear. We didn't know what was going to happen when the verdict was read, and it could have gone the other way. So I think this, kind of this argument now that, well, everyone knew that he was going to be found guilty. That's actually a really gross misrepresentation of the way that the public was, because it wasn't just you. A lot of people were out there saying they didn't think he was going to be guilty on all counts.
I think so. And so I think after the fact, I understand the advocacy piece of this. I really do. This is what I do for a living.
Yes.
And so I get the advocacy piece, and I appreciate that this lawyer has his hands, sort of tied behind his back, and he's making this argument. I get that. The thing is that I do think that what this jury did was they looked at all of the evidence, and they're the ones who are the finders of fact. I mean, this is something that I say to juries all the time. When I'm standing in front of them, frequently when judges walk into a courtroom, we all stand, and the reason we do it is because the judge represents essentially the person who determines what the law is, how the law applies. We also stand when a jury walks into a courtroom, when they're there to determine what they are and to listen to that trial, and we stand for them because they are the judges of the facts. Nobody else gets to tell them what is sufficient. Nobody else gets to tell them you will or will not rule a certain way. They get to hear everything and determine whether all of those elements have been met. And we really stand by their decisions all the time. And honestly, the only way we overturn them is usually if there's some gross error by a judge of not letting something in or letting something in. But when the jury looks at this and says, this is what we think, courts of appeals hate to come back and say, oh, we think you guys made the wrong decision. We would have made a different one. You're just not going to hear that. And in this case, how much do you think the state of Minnesota would want to try Derek Chauvin again? Holy goodness, I can't imagine.
JackRiceLaw.com, JackRiceLaw.com for Jack Rice Defense. You can find him there. Jack Rice, kind enough to join us here. There's another case that you've been paying attention to. It's interesting. It involves, I'm guessing, students sexting pictures to other students at another school, and the fact that by definition, that becomes technically child pornography, correct?
This is crazy. So I get a call yesterday from a media outlet on this issue, and they want to talk to me about sort of how does this thing actually work. The term sometimes you'll hear is sexting, and so what you'll get is students who will do this, high school students, college students, but high school students a lot. In fact, people are somewhat shocked by the number of high school students who do this. There's a recent study, somewhere between 15 and even as high as 20%. That's 1 in 5 have actually done this. Here's the problem. If I'm a hypothetical 17-year-old high school student and I send a picture of myself to anybody, I have just sent child pornography. I mean, people don't think of it that way, or maybe they do, but frequently, if you have two people who are in agreement and say, well, I'm going to send a picture of you, you send a picture of me or whatever, the problem is that if you're under 18 years old, that photograph is pornography, child pornography. And the problem is, it's not just possession of child pornography. There's also a more serious charge of distribution of child pornography when I send it. How about this? Manufacturing of child pornography. I take the picture and then distribute it, and then you have it. And if you have it, now all of a sudden, I might be guilty of manufacturing, distribution, and possession, and you might be guilty of possession. And so what you get is this really weird circumstance where you could have these high school kids who are upstanding in every sense of the word, who could potentially be guilty of a crime. But how about this? Is that alongside this issue, if they prosecute you, if you're convicted of something like this, there is also a mandatory 10-year registration requirement as a sexual predator. Contemplate what this does in the life of, first of all, anybody. But think about it if you're a high school student and you're saying, no, I want to go to college, but I have to tell the college, oh, by the way, I hope you don't mind, I'm a registered sex offender. How you doing now?
Wow.
Whoa, it's amazing.
Can you, are you at liberty to say what school districts this is happening at?
Not yet.
Not right. Okay, no problem. But I imagine, I have a feeling this case is going to be something. That's no problem. But I mean, it does bring up, I think that there is that, there's the cases where someone who's like 18, who's in high school, is dating someone who is, say, 16 in high school or 15 in high school, and technically that could also be construed as a crime. And there are some things there.
Sort of. Well, I mean, sort of. So a lot of what I do, a lot of the cases I handle are sex crimes and date rape and some other things too. But when it comes to children, if you're in high school, it's okay under certain circumstances based upon how old versus how young. They have to be within a certain range. But generally speaking, you get below 16, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, you're getting very, very close to, no matter how old you are, that this is a crime automatically. And so I have seen those cases. And when I was a prosecutor years ago, I recall seeing one of those cases where, in fact, they wanted to charge somebody based upon that issue. And I've had those cases as defense attorneys too, where you have that senior freshman circumstance. And what's wild about it in my mind is that, I got to tell you, and maybe I'm wrong, but you could prosecute probably a couple in almost every high school in America if you really wanted to go down that path, because there are the senior freshman cases. And so this is the example where you realize that prosecutors have prosecutorial judgment, and they have to make those decisions on, is it appropriate? Are we in that situation where this is the kind of case that should be prosecuted? Not that it couldn't be, because it can, but should it be? Because the outcome of these kinds of charges, even if they said you're just going to be found guilty, but we're not going to put you in jail for it, the outcome is the conviction, is the registration, and all these others. It really is truly and utterly catastrophic in terms of what it can do to an individual. And if you think about it in the sense of a couple, and these are high school kids, so I recognize the idea, do I have the authority to be able to say yes? And that's really part of it. But the idea that you have two people who are saying that this is something we want to do or choosing to do together, I don't think there's anybody in the room generally who would look at those and say, this isn't quite the same as the person who's hiding in the bushes and attacking somebody who's just happened to be walking by. It's a different kind of a charge, and yet the ramifications can be as extreme.
You bring up a good point. A quick thought on this. Should we, in the first year of junior high, which for most schools is 6th or 7th grade, should there be a mandatory class on social media that says, by the way, just make sure you understand something. If you do some things, it's not just you and your friends goofing off on social media. It's that when it comes down to this, should we actually have a class where it tries to explain to these people, there are consequences here if you guys go down this path?
Yes. I mean, to me, I think it's obvious, and I love that you bring it up, because if we think about the nature of social media anywhere, there are some countries in the world where one of the things they start doing is they start teaching children about things like media bias when they're kindergartners, when they're first grade. I mean, Finland is a perfect example. They have some of the best social education programs in the world, and this is one of the things that they do. But I think what you could also do is you could talk about the ramifications of what happens if you step into this social media world and what you do with something like this. Because if they started to understand, most people have no idea that anything like this would be an issue. And remember, sometimes what people are doing is they're just messing around. I mean, it's goofy, yes, but I don't think they're purposely saying, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go commit a sex crime by airdropping something on my phone to everybody who has that one switch on their phones. So it's on. You just start sending a picture to randomly everybody in, a certain quad at your school. Now you have 60 people who all have this. If they show it to anybody, what is that? That's right.
Yeah.
It's probably child pornography and distribution. And you're like, wow, are you prepared to now prosecute, 60, 70, 80, 14-year-olds? Is that where we're going now?
let alone any teachers that might have AirDrop on their phone, because then it becomes a real ugly situation there.
Yeah, right. And remember, those are all mandatory reporters too, right?
Yeah,
So you all of a
exactly.
sudden have all of these teachers. Now think about that, where you have all of these teachers and administration officials who are in this situation where they hear about some stupid decision, knowing full well that it was a stupid decision, but they're also mandatory reporters. So they know they have to go to the county attorney and say, we got a problem here.
Jack, I'm going to have you, I want to try to get you back here next week. I want to talk about Ukraine and Russia. And you and I could spend another hour on that alone.
Yes, we
namely,
could.
like, how does Russia think they're going to occupy this land? Oh, good luck with that. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll leave it to law this time around. He's criminal defense attorney Jack Rice is selected as the 2023 Minnesota super lawyer. Oh, wow, man. That's cool.
Thanks,
Jack
brother.
Rice, you got jackricelaw.com, jackricelaw.com. That's where you'll find Jack Rice Defense. He is the best defense attorney in Minneapolis, St. Paul. If you have a question about a case, call him. He'll sit down. He'll give you an honest opinion. And that's what you're really looking for. jackricelaw.com. Jack, as always, a privilege having you on. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, brother. I'm hoping you're convalescing and you're going to be back at it and fighting weight soon. And, you know, it's great. Thank you.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Jack Rice, we'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tanky.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Tune in to AM 950's newest show, Searching for Service, a show designed to help current and future Rotarians find purpose through service.
We are dedicated to sharing stories, experiences, and opportunities for those searching for purpose, value, and meaning.
But more importantly, connection through community. Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcasts.
It's time to stop searching and start serving.
Hi, Alex of Better Futures Minnesota. Does your business or organization need janitorial services, lawn care, or snow services? Obtain a free, no-obligation estimate from Better Futures Minnesota when you mention that you heard about us on AM 950. Our supervised, hardworking, and affordable crews will handle your interior and exterior building and property maintenance needs while you help men in your community transform their lives and walk on a positive path to success. It's a win-win. To learn more, go to betterfuturesminnesota.com under Business Services.
Habitation presents a radio drama. To buy or not to buy, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to compromise and live with a sectional that doth not fit my space, or to take up arms against a sea of mediocrity, and by opposing it, to rest, to be comfortable, to enjoy the space that is my home. Hi, this is Gregory Rich, owner of Habitation Design and host of Drink in the Style. I'd like to personally invite you to our new showroom located in the District at Edina, 7777 Washington Avenue South. Habitation, put some drama into your interior design.
Crooner's Supper Club invites you to enjoy drinks, a delicious dinner, and live music from both big-name local and national artists in a wide array of styles. Before or after your show, check out the new Maggie's Lounge, a perfect spot to visit with friends. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 with cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. Crooner's Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65. A little piece of old school nightlife in the 21st century.
Oh, Jack always makes my show better, man. I do have to have him back. We got to talk about foreign policy issues because, of course, his time with the service agencies of the government, clandestine agencies. He is excellent on that. And I do want to ask him the question: how exactly do you think the Russians are going to be able to occupy? I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to beat in Ukraine anyway. But it's how exactly do you think they're going to occupy these areas? Good luck with that. Good luck with that. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Hey, reminder here, as I was sorting through some briefs here at home, and of course came across the fantastic calendar, which of course the Kite Festival is. You've seen the picture there, Brett, for the calendar here, the cover for January rather is the Kite Festival for January on Lake Harriet. Have you ever flown a kite when wearing full winter gear?
No, I can't say I have.
It is as advertised. You're flying a kite in full winter gear. It was actually, the day I took that picture was actually quite lovely. It was a nice day out there. It wasn't too cold, but when it got better when the wind was going earlier. It was great for kite flying, but it wasn't great for being out there. The picture I took, a lot of the bigger kites, like they have that one, that the astronaut kite on the left side of it, and the kitty cat kite. A lot of the bigger kites, that one of Cleopatra was huge. They had to come down because there was not enough air to get up there. So I was lucky to get that shot. I love the calendar. I'm very happy that we were able to do another calendar for 2023 from AM 950. We also have, and I was looking at the poster pictures as well yesterday. I had an extraordinary experience going on out to the parks of the West this last year with the kids. We had a great time visiting Utah, Arizona, Colorado, just gorgeous country, and was able to take a lot of pictures. We made a poster of it. These are our thank you gifts this year for AM 950 for the people who become members. Now, once again, a lot of people have already become members. Thank you very much. Love you all. There are a lot of people that might still want to become a member. By all means, please do, because the thank you gifts will keep going, and you can still get yourself the AM 950 2023 calendar and the 2023 poster. Both are still available as thank you gifts. Now go to am950radio.com, go to the membership page, click on the membership at level 1 for making a donation. The thank you gift is the calendar. At the higher level, we'll get you the calendar and the poster, both of them together as thank you gifts. And you're helping to keep Progressive Radio on the air. Let's face it, just go back to that first hour. Go to the first hour of today's show. Listen to, I practiced. I did my due diligence. I did my research. Where else are you going to hear someone break down exactly what the freaking Republicans are doing in Washington, D.C. in this town? You're gonna go get some hemming and hawing from the newspapers, or a TV station doing a 2-minute or 2-minute 20-second story? No, I broke it down very cleanly here. That's Progressive Radio that you can count on, and we do have a lot we have to share here. Morning show, we have the Santita Jackson. By the way, I just got a quote from Jack Rice there. We didn't talk about Alec Baldwin. Yeah, no, we didn't. I wanted to get to Alec Baldwin. We did not have time. Like I said, I'll get Jack back on here beforehand. Santita Jackson in the morning, Stephanie Miller, of course, Tom Hartman, me. You got Pilot and Crew with Native Roots Radio. Rick Smith, love Rick. The evenings, a whole great lineup on the weekends. We have great programming here. Progressive Radio. Not a lot of states, not a lot of cities have it. We got it here. Help support it and make sure it stays on the air. Head on over to am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com. Become a member. Get the thank you gifts. And from me personally, thank you. Thank you very, very much for supporting the progressive voice of Minnesota, AM 950. Let's take a break. Come on back. Some more stories to get to when we do return. It is the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Hey, it's Tom telling you how All Energy Solar can make you see green in 2023. Fossil fuel prices will continue to rise this year, so lock in an energy rate with a new system from All Energy Solar. Solar panels from All Energy Solar last 25 to 30 years, giving you stable energy costs for decades to come. And besides solar panels, All Energy Solar can also help with solar battery storage and electric car charging stations. For 2023, many tax incentives are available, and All Energy Solar can walk you through the entire process. The Inflation Reduction Act included an extension and increase to the federal solar tax credit. Plus, many local utilities and communities in Minnesota offer solar rebates. But don't delay. Many local incentives are claimed on a first-come, first-served basis, meaning if you wait until the traditional spring construction season, those incentives will likely be gone. So make 2023 your greenest year ever, both environmentally and financially. Get a free no-obligation assessment from All Energy Solar by visiting allenergysolar.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for snow to taper today with a high near 30, tonight cloudy with a low around 18, and Friday cloudy with a high near 24. The Great Wall Restaurant offers an extensive Chinese menu with an emphasis on Szechuan and Mandarin cuisine. Some of their specialties include the double sautéed lamb, seafood delight, and crispy boneless duck. The Great Wall Restaurant is located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border. More at greatwalledina.com.
Boneless duck, you say? Hello. Hello, boneless duck. Oh, sounds delicious. 952-946-6205. It does, man. I'm tired of my own cooking. I'm not eating all pre-processed stuff here. I'm cooking my own food. Like I'm doing red beans and rice tonight. Yes, I'm that good. But a little boneless duck doesn't sound bad at all. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. Hey, we haven't talked about Water Gremlin. Brett, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you remember Water Gremlin? This is the company up in White Bear Lake. I think they make fishing weights and sinkers and stuff like this. Weren't they the company that was accused of sending people in completely toxic clothes back out onto metro buses to go home?
That doesn't sound very good.
That seems like, I remember correctly, that seemed bad. They didn't have like a shower facility there, even though these people are basically, playing around in an environment that's kind of like that the Vegas scene in the Blade Runner 2049. Water Gremlin was served Tuesday on this. This is why I'm trying to remember what they were for. I can't. Don't take me as a word. Hope maybe the story has it here, but I'm trying to remember what exactly they did, which did seem a little bit reckless at the time. Water Gremlin was served Tuesday with 95, count them, 95 lawsuits accusing the company of causing cancer, chronic illness, and death for some White Bear Township residents. The company, which manufactures fishing products and battery terminals, delicious, was found $7 million in 2019 for a 17-year history of releasing into the air hazardous chemical known as, I'm not even going to try, TCE. TCE. Now, 95 plaintiffs are filing individual suits claiming the chemical is to blame for 35 wrongful deaths, 60 chronic illness cases, primarily cancer, said Dean Salita, the lead attorney. TCE is a solvent used to clean metals. Also found in consumer products such as refrigerants and paint removers, it emits an invisible, odorless gas that can cause cancer. TCE is a carcinogen, said Salida, and my clients all fit the medical literature and have exposed to the chemical. Wow. Water Gremlin said it first learned of the complaints Tuesday morning, is reviewing the 95 claims. In a statement from the company, nearly half of all Minnesotans will be diagnosed with potentially life-threatening cancer in their lifetime. Water Gremlin has deep sympathy for all families experiencing this terrible disease. There. Okay. Lee Thiel, a founding board member of the White Bear Area's Neighborhood Concerned Citizen Group, said she is very happy to see that there is starting to be some accountability for what she calls egregious emissions. Over the course of 17 years, Water Gremlin has permitted to release 170 tons of CTE, according to the 2019 stipulation agreement made between the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and Water Gremlin. Instead, the company released 1,000 tons of TCE during that period. They were allowed to release 170 tons over 17 years, so basically a ton a year. And instead, well, so yeah, a ton a year. Let's time for Matt's math corner here. Hold on a second. Let's see. What would be that number, shall we? 1,000 divided by 17. So they were allowed to release 10 tons of CTE a year. 10. They released 58.8. That would be more. That would be almost 6 times more than they were supposed to release. Wow. In recent years, Water Gremlin's been fined for other issues, including the TCE emissions. In October 2019, the company temporarily shut down after it was discovered that employees were tracking lead dust into their homes. That's right, which led to 24 children and employees being exposed to lead. So that was the story. It's like, okay, wait a second here. You are basically coating your employees with lead and then saying, have a nice night, let alone, and I brought up, that was what the deal is. Okay, are these guys going on MTC buses? Because then anyone that's riding those buses, including the drivers, have been exposed to lead. Dear Lord. Why does everything tingle? The November of 2019, Water Gremlin was charged by the MPCA for letting contaminated engine oil leak out of the factory. In April of 2021, the company was fined $325,000 for improperly cleaning the factory and potentially releasing pollutants outdoors, according to the MPCA. I'm sensing a pattern here. I raised my kids here. They learned how to ride their bikes outside, spend as much time outside as they could. I'm worried about this will happen to them in the future as a result of this. Thiel and her family live a quarter mile from the Water Gremlin plant. Salida said the goal in the lawsuits is to seek justice and accountability from Water Gremlin. The families have been damaged in their health, their ability to earn a wage, their ability to live. He said the plaintiffs would like Water Gremlin to be accountable for the actions they took, come forward and do the honorable thing. Now, I'm going to share with you just some perspective here from my perspective. Because, and I want to be very careful here. I don't want to share too much. But when it became clear that in my situation, being hit by an alleged drunk driver, that this was an offender bender in the parking lot of a grocery store. We sought advice, found a lawyer, and we're working with them to make sure that we are represented and our cause in case. And I talked with a friend of mine who they themselves did not have this case. They themselves were not in a case that was like this, but had I think it was a brother, that same thing, but he was on a bike, got clipped by a drunk driver. And, he said, well, yeah. And eventually they went to court and he was awarded something like $500,000 for this. And I said, well, that's nice. He goes, no, you don't seem to understand. They had to literally put all that money aside because of the amount of damage this drunk driver did to him. There is a tendency that when you get court cases like this, and you're like, well, the jury found for this one side and for like $300,000. Now, I don't want to. I want to be very clear here. There is no kind of perception. There is not applied here, but it was just an eye-opening realization. Is that when you hear these cases, there are a lot of people out there go, that lucky duck, he got all that money. The reality is that if you've seriously been injured, like myself, I don't know. I got a broken back. I'm not sure exactly what's my health issues going to be in regards to said back in 20 years. So what you're really doing is you're basically getting some mild level of insurance that if you end up having substantial health problems due to said injury, that you have the financial wherewithal set aside to be able to deal with that. Whether that might be physical therapy, might need to be putting ramps on a house, might need to have a personal a nurse there having to get this, because the reality is that this stuff is really freaking expensive. And so it's not some sort of windfall lottery winnings. These things are, when you comes down to this, you've got to look at what the potential health risks of the future are. Now, why am I bringing that up with the water gremlin? Let's go back to the end of this story. I raised my kids here. They learned how to ride their bikes outside. I spent as much time outside as I could. I'm worried that it happened to them in the future as a result of this. When I read that, the first thing that crossed my mind is, holy God, they're right. And there could already be a ticking clock on some of these kids that lived in White Bear Township, to where at a very young age, they are looking at a serious health crisis. Yeah, there is a laundry list of health problems that it can cause cancer. What if all of a sudden a kid who grew up in that area at 27 years old, who's never smoked a day in their life, all of a sudden gets lung cancer, who not are really around smokers? The question I have is that I think you have to make sure that if there are family members here, even if they don't have diagnosed conditions, that there's got to be some sort of fund or something set aside so that if they eventually do have conditions, I mean, if found guilty, and obviously this is a different, I think these are civil, are these civil lawsuits served with the 95 lawsuits from accusing the company? These are coming from individuals in the community. So yeah, it's not exactly, this is going to be more of a civil case, it sounds like. 35 wrongful deaths, 60 chronic illness cases. If they can tie this back down to water gremlin, the question then comes is if anyone in this area, if the neighbor died of cancer, if the other neighbor has cancer and hasn't died, and all of a sudden at 25 years old, your son, who is physically fit, played sports in high school, was as an active runner, all of a sudden gets a diagnosis of cancer, you got to make sure that person gets some level of justice for them. And I think it's going to be interesting. I find, like I said, just having gone through this a little bit myself, having to all of a sudden start thinking about this, not in the way that I think a lot of people look at this stuff as in a windfall. It's not. If you are in a situation like this and you are found to, whatever the case may be, get a large sum of money in a settlement, the best thing you can do is stash that money away and hope and pray that you do not need to use it for medical reasons. Especially with some of these medical companies out there, if they come back and they say, wait a minute here, you were living near this, such and such company. Well, such and such company didn't, wasn't there some families that sued? Well, why didn't you sue? You should have done that. We're not going to cover it. I think that's the thing that kind of scares me a little bit too, in this case. Can I considering the problems that this company has had, I have some real questions on whether or not the public can trust them to run the company, the people that are running it to run it. I mean, once again, let's run through the laundry list here. They were releasing 58 tons of CTE a year when they were only entitled to release 10. In October 2019, temporarily shut down because the employees were leaving their work covered in lead dust. And if I remember correctly, they did not have a working shower cleaning facility at the site. Charged for letting contaminated engine oil leak out of the factory. Fined rather $325,000 for improperly cleaning the factory. And yeah, I'm all for capitalism. But where is the delineation line between allowing a business to be a business and, in this case, opening themselves up to potential lawsuits, but still allowing them to stay open and be there, versus basically saying, for the betterment of the community, we got to shut you down? I don't know. I will say this: 95 cases, if they have hard evidence that show they're within like a specific distance of water gremlin, especially with consistent wind patterns downwind of them, and those numbers are substantially higher than in other communities without a large corporation, I think the legal system might be taking care of business as it is. Like I said, I think just be careful to make sure that future cases associated with this are dealt with as they come to, because I got a feeling this might have a lingering impact far beyond just what is going on right now. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, if found guilty. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Yeah, man.
Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood restaurant in the Whittier neighborhood at 26th and Lindale. Nightingale has patio, dining room, and bar seating available. Plus, they still have takeout and delivery. Their menu has lots of delicious options like the famous Nightingale burger and fries, ginger tamari chicken wings, smoked chicken liver pate, and more. They're open from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with their full menu until midnight. So make the friendly neighborhood Nightingale your go-to restaurant in South Minneapolis. Place an order, make a reservation, and more at nightingalempls.com.
With the colder weather here, now is the time to get yourself a vehicle that can handle the winter roads at Rudy Luther Toyota. Rudy Luther Toyota has fantastic models that can tackle Minnesota at its blustery worst. The RAV4, Highlander, Land Cruiser, Sequoia, and the Corolla Cross, all of them give you the safe drive you're looking for. And the Sequoia, Highlander, and RAV4 all have a hybrid model. If my Toyota Sienna minivan tackles the snow like a pro, their entire lineup can handle the task with ease. Test drive a Toyota today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 169 and 394 in Golden Valley.
Hi, this is Kirk Duckwall with the Twin Cities Real Estate Show here on AM 950. Has our market changed? Yes. However, unlike what some people are saying, our Twin Cities market is still up by almost 8% year over year, and days on market are near an all-time low. If you're thinking of selling and would like not just a market analysis, but a total market overview, give me a call at 651-303-0019 or find me anytime at housegeeks.com.
The Senior Linkage Line is a free statewide service of the Minnesota Board on Aging, helping older Minnesotans and caregivers find answers and connect to services and supports. Questions about Medicare, transportation, looking to move to senior housing, overwhelmed with prescription drug plans? Call the Senior Linkage Line at 800-333-2433 or visit trellisconnects.org, where we help people optimize well-being as they age. That's trellisconnects.org.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. So, I want to say that sometimes the result of a story might not give us the answer directly, but I think we can figure out by the response that we get exactly who's responsible. In this case, the Supreme Court said Thursday an 8-month investigation that included more than 120 interviews and revealed shortcomings of how sensitive documents are secured and failed to find who leaked a draft of the court's opinion overturning abortion rights. 97 employees, including the justice's law clerk, swore under oath that they did not disclose a draft of Samuel Alito's opinion that overturned Roe v. Wade. It was unclear whether the justices themselves were questioned about the leak, which was the first time an entire opinion made its way to the public before the court was ready to announce it. Politico published the explosive leak detailing the Alito draft in early May. Chief Justice Roberts ordered an investigation the next day and what turned to be an egregious breach of trust. Now, I want to remind everyone, all the conservative news media outlets started screaming at the top of their lungs about Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan. It was them. It had to have been them. It had been them. And I said, okay, first of all, that didn't make a lot of sense. It was going to be them. But it became pretty clear, especially when we started finding about the other conversations that he'd had, that Mr. Blabby over there on the Supreme Court is one Samuel Alito, who has a history of sharing sensitive information he probably shouldn't be sharing, or allegedly sharing sensitive information. Now, reminder, Samuel Alito is an absolute tool. I mean, he is an absolute dingleberry. Seriously, just a jackass of a human being. Remember last fall when he knew they were about to release a bunch of political rulings, how he went out there on the speaking circuit and started, how dare you guys accuse our future rulings of being political? He knew they were going to be political, and he still did this. He is one of the most dishonest human beings I've ever seen in my life, and he's just an absolute douche, man. Alito is just one of those guys that you ditch at the bar because you're like, okay, we're done with this guy. And apparently because people did that, now he's, ruling the way he's ruling on the Supreme Court. I have no idea. I can't say that for a fact. That's a pure speculation at this point. On Thursday, the court said its investigative team has to date been unable to identify a person responsible. The investigation has not come to an end. My guess is going to be they found out it was Alito. I'm serious. I have no evidence for it. I'm purely speculation. My guess is that everything pointed right at Alito, and Alito, considering this is a conservative court, basically bought in every favor he could to basically say, all right, just let's not release this. The court did say it cannot rule out that it was inadvertently disclosed. I highly doubt that. While not identifying the leaker, the investigation turned up problems in the court's internal practices, some of which were exasperated by the coronavirus pandemic. Too many people have access to sensitive information. The court policies on information security were outdated, and in some cases, employees acknowledged revealing confidential information to their spouses. It was not clear from the report whether investigators talked to the justices' spouses. Some employees, I'm sure. Let's get Ginny Thomas in there. It's fine. Let's get her under oath and ask her a few questions, shall we? Some employees had to acknowledge in their written statements that they admitted to telling their spouses about a draft opinion or a vote count. Investigators looked closely at connections between court employees and reporters. They found nothing to substantiate rampant speculation on social media about the identity of the leaker. The investigation concluded that it is unlikely the court's information technology systems were improperly accessed by a person outside of the court. So there's that. I mean, raise your hand if you think it was Alito and his crew. I got both of them up. All right. There you go. Even though I'm not legally supposed to do or medically supposed to do that, both hands are in the air right now. There you go. Native Roots Radio, I Am Awake. Robert Pilot and crew come up in 6 o'clock. Stick around for them. Have a good one. We are back on a Friday. Until then, see ya.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area. Visit snapconstruction.com.